Alright, this is Madcap Music Review, and we're here with Brian Tatler from Diamond Head. How you doing, brother? Good to meet you.
Yeah, and you?
Good. So you're here in Los Angeles, and you guys are currently in the midst of a tour. You guys, I think, are up, what's next, Vegas and then Colorado?
Yeah. Is it Vegas tomorrow? I can't remember.
San Diego, I think.
Oh, okay. No, I can't remember. We sort of lose track of where we are and what day it is and stuff like that. It all just becomes, travelling and different venue, different hotel room. But yeah, it's we're in the Vex tonight, and this is still Los Angeles, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
But, it's a bit further south than the centre and things. Yeah, it should be good. We've never played Los Angeles before.
That's right. You guys have played the Observatory a few times in Orange County. In Santa Ana. Wow. I know, which is crazy to think with your history going back to 76.
No. We should have come over in the 80s, really, in 1982 or 83 or something.
Mm-hmm.
But I suppose that either the money wasn't there, maybe the label in America didn't want to fund it, or maybe the management didn't understand how to get into the market, and we'd probably built up a bit of an entourage around that point where we got road crew and
it's getting a bit heavy to float everybody coming over.
To suddenly say, right, we've got to America, but we're going to have to just take the band and a driver or something and travel in a van and all that. Maybe nobody wanted to do that. I don't remember being asked that question, But I think that's the way you do it, isn't it? The first time you keep the costs down.
Yeah, generally I think.
Try and keep it
back then, nowadays with the bands you talk to, regardless of how big they are or whatever level they're on, it's how they make their money: merch and gigs, merch gigs.
Yeah.
And it's sad in these days, with the internet and everything, which is a good thing as far as like getting music perhaps out to different people.
Yeah.
But then you've got all the illegal downloading and everything, which really wasn't going on back when you guys started out.
No, not at all. I mean, CDs hadn't been invented, had they? When we
No, it was all vinyl or cassette.
That's right. We used to, make demos straight onto cassette, and then the first record, was all vinyl, and all the first album. Canterbury even was just vinyl. No, CDs didn't come into about 85, did they? So none of the early stuff was on CD at all. And people don't buy CDs now. It's all changed, hasn't it? Since
well, the people that love music still do, but the kids, they're kind of.
But it just keep dropping.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate thing,
It's been dropping year on year, hasn't it?
I mean, that's how I first got turned on to you guys, was going through the import bin at my local record store and seeing the cool cover. It was in the heavy metal section, and Borrowed Time with that expansive cover. It just looked intriguing. So you go home.
Bought it because of the cover?
Yeah, I really didn't. This was before Metallica. This was 82 when the album first actually came out. And, Screaming for Vengeance had the cool cover. And I already knew about Judas Priest a bit. And, Number of the Beast had come out, that year. And then what's in the import section, and that just sticks out to you. And you're like, oh, it seems like it's got a cool logo. And you take it, I was 9 years old at the time. So you take it home, you give it a spin, and you're like, oh, okay, not bad. And at the time, didn't realize in the States that there were some songs off the first album, Lightning to the Nations, added on there.
That's right. And Am I Evil, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the reason behind that was because the first album was only pressed, there was 1,000 copies with the white sleeve and all that.
Signed by the band too, wasn't it?
Yeah, we signed 250 copies each, because
Wow.
we didn't fancy signing all 1,000 each. So we did 250 each, but because that's all there was of that, really. When we signed to MCA, they just thought it's a shame to lose those songs, if you like. So they decided we should definitely put Am I Evil on, because that seemed to be the live favourite, even back then. And Lightning to the Nations as well. So, and I mean, in an ideal world, I think what they should have done is properly release Lightning to the Nations.
Right.
Just release that.
Yes.
Because otherwise you're losing all those other songs, aren't you? You're losing the Prince and Helpless and but they didn't
Streets
want to
of
do
Gold
that. None of the labels wanted to release that album as it was. And by the time we made Borrowed Time, we'd changed, we'd progressed, we'd written new songs, and I suppose we just thought we'll do a new album, you know, which had, of course, Heat of the
Night, Borrowed Time, Don't You Ever Leave Me. Yeah.
That's right. So that became the bulk of the album, but it was a bit of a strange idea, but you know.
Well, even before you did the first album, you guys had recorded or had well over 100 songs.
That's right. Well, we had about 100 by the time it came out. That's right. So.
How did you go about picking only 7 for that first album?
I think it was just the better songs, really. We'd playing everything live. We'd done about 50 gigs, and of course, we always road tested our material. If it worked live, it was great. If it didn't work live, we would scrap the song, you know. So our set was probably built around those songs, and we also had To Heaven From Hell around that period. Shoot Out the Lights. There's a few songs, extra songs, Dead Reckoning we had, and we just seemed to think that was the best 7 songs for that album. And of course, they're very long, so there's only like 3 songs on side 1, isn't there?
Right, they're generally 7 plus minutes.
That's right. We liked those big, long, epic songs.
Absolutely.
We didn't really like singles and short, kind of catchy songs. We liked the big picture, you know, the big epic. But you know, that's what it was like back then. We kept trying new songs, and that was pretty much the cream of our live set. I would imagine those 7 songs.
What's interesting too is, you know, now looking back, you know, people have dubbed it, you know, the new wave of British heavy metal. But what people, I think, forget is back in those days, there was no internet, there was no... You very well, and I don't know, but when you guys started out, were you aware of bands like Maiden or, you know, Saxon or other bands that were...
When we started now, all we were aware of was our little
circle.
And there was a couple of bands locally, but none of them did anything. And we were just... comparing ourselves to the big bands like the Zeppelins and the Purples and Sabbath, and then along come AC/DC and Rush and, you know, Thin Lizzy and whatever. So we were kind of looking to the big guys, bands that were already playing Birmingham Odeon and the big venues.
Sure.
We weren't necessarily competing with our local scene. We didn't think we were competing with how do we get to be one of these big bands, you know.
Not realizing there was this scene somehow forming at the same time.
All over the country, bands were probably doing exactly what we were doing, trying to become the next Sabbath, you know, whatever. And then it all got tied together, unified by Sounds magazine, and Jeff Barton and Alan Lewis, the editor, who came up with the name, the New Wave British Heavy Metal. And then once that appeared in 1979, and like Leopard were front page news, and Iron Maiden and Samson, they got...
Sure, Bruce Dickinson's first band.
Do you remember the drummer with his mask on Thunderstick?
Oh, that's right.
That was front
yes.
cover of Sounds as well.
Oh, wow, okay.
So I used to read Sounds, and I thought, wow, this is interesting. All these bands are about the same sort of age as myself. And there seemed to be a movement. I mean, we'd already had punk, which was massive.
Right. Yeah, that was huge.
So I thought, okay, maybe this is going to be the next thing. We could be part of this, because we were perfectly placed to do that. We've been going for 3 years. It's a good band. We've done gigs. You know, we've written these songs. So I just wanted to be noticed, really, and I thought this is an opportunity to possibly get a record deal.
And the first album you got, I think, which most people should know by now, was Zeppelin 2, right?
Was what?
Was Led Zeppelin 2?
First album I bought?
Yeah.
Yeah, Led Zeppelin 2.
And it's interesting to hear because, you know, it opens up with a whole lot of love. And then you hear songs like Sucking My Love. And was that a direct influence on that? Because there's...
I would imagine Sean's... Sean was a big Robert Plant fan.
Yeah, vocally especially.
Vocally more than
right.
musically. The riff's very different, isn't it?
Absolutely, 100%.
I know it breaks down in the middle.
Yeah, about the 4.5 minute mark.
At Whole Lot of Love. I think that's just something we felt.
Just came out of the time.
Yeah. Yeah, we were huge Zeppelin fans. They're still my favourite band even today. But I don't think we were just trying to blueprint Zeppelin on.
Well, what was great about Zeppelin is they understood the blues. They had such a deep root in the blues.
Yeah.
Did that play a part in your youth growing up? Any of the blues artists?
I didn't like the blues that much. I tried to stay away from it. I tried to do something different, really. There's quite a few bands that seem bluesy based, and I thought they were kind of retreading old ground. So I probably leant more towards the prog bands, who, in my opinion, were doing something new and not relying on the same old chord changes.
Sure.
So I would try and avoid cliches and blues tricks, get from A to B, and anything rock and roll. Or I didn't really want to be associated with that. I considered that the past, and I was looking forward, really. So I would be picking up on anything that felt new and different. So, no.
Was at the time had Priest gone big enough where that was a bit of an influence, or were you aware of them? Or
I liked them on their album "Sad Brings the Destiny."
Yeah, '76.
That's my favourite.
Same year you guys formed.
So if that's '76, I mean that's when
you guys started. Yeah.
So that would be one of our main albums that we'd listen to. It'd be, Sabbath. Master of Reality is an important album.
Absolutely.
Let There Be Rock. It was Zeppelin.
Machine Head by Deep Purple.
Head, totally. So there's several, key albums that I would listen to and probably be influenced by. But yeah, Sad Rings of Destiny was an important album, and I really liked Sin After Sin as well, and Stay in Class. There's quite a few little bits of Priest that I probably borrowed.
And then in 1981, a young kid from California, well, a Danish kid, 18-year-old, 17 was he at the time. Lars comes out, literally just such a huge fan, somehow gets his way backstage and hits it off with you guys so well, and he ends up hanging out with you and Sean for a bit.
That's right. I thought it was amazing that he'd flown all the way from Los Angeles to London.
And it was
17. First of all, I thought, how's he got the money to do that?
Right. Had he even contacted you at that point?
Let him do it, yeah.
Did he just show up at the gig just hoping to possibly meet his heroes?
He'd already gotten in touch by letter. He'd written to the fan club. So we knew there was a guy in Los Angeles who liked us. That was it. That was probably unique.
Sure.
Back in 81.
Oh, yeah.
We'd probably thought, oh, great. Somebody in America's bought the album. And then, he showed up backstage, said, I'm Lars. And maybe we remembered that he'd written to us. But we just thought, oh, great. He's obviously got this accent that's interesting. And we took to him because, he was so enthusiastic about the band. And he was such a nice guy and so full of energy and enthusiasm that we took to him. And I remember offering it to, I said, where are you stopping? And he said, I'm sure he said he didn't know, he'd just come straight from the airport. So I'd say, stay with me if you want, come, we're going back to the Midlands, so you could stop at my house. So he's right, yeah, right. So that was that, and he, jumped in the car, and we he got to hang out, really, like you said.
With his heroes.
Straight away, and he'd come to rehearsal, and he'd come to about 3 gigs with us, jump in the car. There'd be like, usually 5 in the car for the 4 members of the band, and this guy, John Page, who was our tour manager driver. And suddenly there's 6, and with 4 on the back seat, Lars is there as well.
Right.
So I suppose he was really lucky, really, that we let him do that. And we must have liked him to do what,
He must have had a good person. He must have a hell of a personality, He took him on.
I'm sure we laughed about his accent and thought he was highly amusing, his character. We'd never met anybody like that before. So, it was great. And I'm glad I did.
Well, yeah, because his passion, to meet his heroes and the way that you guys were just so approachable to him, which is unheard of. To meet your heroes and let alone to get the chance to meet him and then get invited to hang out with him.
Well, as I say, I think we were just so amazed that he'd come over from America. What can you do? He's a 17-year-old kid, something in me must have felt, wow, he's made a big effort here. You know, the least we can do is show him some hospitality.
And all these years later, he has been just such a giant supporter of the band.
Totally.
Which has been just, I have to imagine, quite a blessing.
Totally. I'm sure without Lars and Metallica, this band wouldn't be here now, wouldn't be, you know, still touring and making records and stuff. I think we'd have faded away, like so many new wave of British heavy metal bands did fade away once.
Angel Witch or
Tigers
Van
and
Tang.
there was hundreds of bands who'd never even got signed.
Right.
They just did their own single or their own maybe, you know, demos and stuff, and so would have faded away once they weren't signed, you know. But even, you know, as you say, bands like, you know, Angel Witch or Tigers of Van Tang, they eventually got dropped by their labels,
Right.
and probably went back to day jobs and things, you know, because the money's not there. But Lars seemed to have been the one who went from A to B, didn't he?
Yeah, pretty quick, huh?
I've never seen anybody do that before. Not that I knew personally.
Right.
Who formed a band and then it becomes the biggest metal band of all time.
It's crazy. You read those articles, you know, the stories, and he was putting out that he had a band before he had one. It was him and his kit and James and nobody else. And
That's right.
I've got a band. And I guess it's that tenacity.
He kind of flagged Metallica onto that Metal Massacre.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Again, before they'd done anything, they hadn't done a gig or anything.
Yeah, they got in a spot but no band.
He just took a cassette round, didn't he? Said, there you go, Hit the Lights.
Hit the Lights, yeah.
Their first song, pretty much.
On the way over, I think, to drop it off, they stopped by this guy Lloyd Grant's house to do a little guitar work on it. And
Put a solo on there.
Yeah, it was very, I mean, he was just rushing that out.
Amazing.
What's interesting, I also find with the earlier lyrics, like songs like Helpless, The Prince, there's that want for glory, there's that want for fame, that anything to make it, whether you got to sell your soul to the devil or play every single night until you drop. And then you go to 2007, Where's Your Head At, and the song This Planet and Me, and it's the opposite. I don't want to be in the video, I don't want to be on the radio, they're trying to take their soul from me.
Okay.
Is that kind of like looking back, or like after all the time, like...
No, I'll tell you what that is. For a start, that's two different singers, so it's two different lyric writers. Mm-hmm. And that song, This Planet to Me, was written about a previous guitarist who decided he didn't want his photos taken anymore, and we just thought he was losing the plot. We'd been saying to him we need to have a new photo session with the band and all that.
Right.
And he started going, I don't want to be in it. And he'd been reading this book about the photo is, you know, will take your soul kind of thing, and it's all glorification of the ego, and you shouldn't get into any of that. So when people would come backstage and say, can we get a picture and all that, we'd all go, yeah, right. We'd go, you know, come on, get. And he'd go, no, I ain't having my photo taken anymore. I ain't into all that caper anymore. And we thought, what's he talking about? You know, if you're in a band, you got to have your photo taken, ain't you?
Yeah.
You've got to make videos and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's part of the gig.
So that is where the lyric comes from.
Oh, okay.
It's not about me or the band. It's about this weird guy that is gone now. You know, he's not in the band anymore. But this is the stuff he was spouting, and I think Nick just thought, I'm going to write about that instead of just getting frustrated about it. Make a lyric out of it.
Yeah.
Get some money out of it.
Yeah, it's a great song. I mean, it really stands out, and it's such an interesting contrast to the earlier songs, like as far as attitude and just the perspective.
Well, it's a big jump between, you know, Play It Loud, for example, and This Planet to Me, isn't there? There's probably 25 years.
Oh, easily, yeah. So what's coming up next for you guys after you wrap up the tour here in the U.S.?
Yeah, well, this is all that I can think of at the moment, so we get through this first, and then, I don't know, there's always things in the pipeline, different opportunities come our way, and we work out what we can do, really, whatever is feasible, you know, for everybody, how we can get together and finance things, you know, that's always a problem. Because it's expensive, isn't it, to do a tour like this?
Oh, yeah, it's
flights.
you eat half the costs. like I said, it's all
We're in a band.
merch, tour. Because fans just, or at least kids, should be buy the albums, kids. They're out there, buy them. Don't download them, because there's liner notes and pictures. Kids, they don't get it.
No, it's a different generation now. They want things for free.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
So the damage is done.
What's it like writing a song like Am I Evil that becomes so anthemic that it becomes bigger than the band itself? It becomes it's a metal anthem. Mm-hmm. It almost becomes the people's song at that point. Mm-hmm. Did you realize when you had written it and when you were playing that it was going to become such a large piece?
No, we did notice once we started playing it live that it became popular very quickly, and you could tell the reaction. But no, when we were writing it did take a long time to write. I thought it was a good riff, and I kept adding to it. Like I had the riff, and that became the verse, bridge, and chorus is all the same riff, isn't it? Mm-hmm. You go from E to B to back to E, but the riff never moves.
No, you've got the little finger tapping at the beginning.
It kind of bloodens a listener to death, I think, that riff does. For like 2.5 minutes, it's exactly the same riff. Mm-hmm. But, so we had that bit, and then I think we added the fast part as which was another song, I believe, but I've kind of a vague memory of that. The fast part might have been another song that we kind of managed to stick onto the main chunk. And then I remember I really liked that track by Holtz, the composer Holtz, the Planet Suite.
Oh, okay.
So I liked Mars, because it was so mean and it had those, flat and fifth kind of notes in it, the B and the B flat. And I wanted somehow to put that on at the front, so we worked out a version of the Planet's section, and I managed to stick that on the front. It was a different rhythm now. The drum rhythm's different too.
What year was that originally? Did you guys originally write that?
We started writing it in probably 79, and it was on the first album. So the first album was recorded, I think, around April, May.
Right.
1980.
I was wondering if it was one of those songs that goes back to the 100-pack songs. I did it.
That song from A to B. It wasn't finished really till we were in the studio, because I'd still be working on the guitar solo bit, and the tapping bit in the solo, not the intro.
That's what I was going to ask you. The intro part was that influenced at all by Van Halen? Had you heard them at that point?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd heard Eruption.
Okay.
So I just sort of figured out how to do that, and thought that'd be good at the start, and managed to put it in. I was very good at, absorbing ideas and getting them into, my songs, Diamond Head songs, quite quickly. If I thought of a little lick or something, I'd be able to fit it in straight away almost, find the perfect spot for it. Just probably the way my brain worked, and then the last thing I think. I remember putting the end on. I suddenly had this idea to go back into the intro riff again, right at the end, as a sort of. I don't know how that works, but it just sort of reminds you of the first part, and it all seems to tie it together.
It does, yeah. Over 7 minutes, but it works.
Idea. It popped in my head one day. But as I said, the last bit was the tapping bit where the guitar goes to an A and then an F, then a B sharp, then an F sharp, and back to B. And that was the last thing we actually came up with in the studio. And once I got that right, I thought, well, that's brilliant, that is. It's finally finished.
Right.
Now I can leave it alone and put it to bed.
Was there any concern during those days lyrically? I mean, those are some pretty raw lyrics for the time. My mother was a witch, she was burned alive, think it's a little bitch. Sweet and timely whore, take me home. I mean, that was a lot to absorb, I would imagine, for a lot of people who probably hadn't heard that before.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Sean was just coming from the angle. It was a very heavy riff, a very mean riff.
Yeah, it had the attitude for sure.
He felt, I've got to come up with a mean lyric to match.
Is that how it would go? The music would come first, then Sean would... Okay.
Always.
Oh, okay.
He always wrote the music first. Then Sean would be able to sort of scan on top. He'd just make up stuff at first, or he'd nick other people's lyrics sometimes.
Or just kind of hum along to what he thought maybe.
And then eventually he'd write a lyric, and that would keep evolving. like sometimes every night the lyric would be slightly different until you got him in the studio, and then he'd sing the lyric, and sometimes even then he'd go out up. I've thought of a new word for the second verse. I want to do with that instead of this, and then it becomes the definitive version once it's recorded.
That makes sense now. I'd always wondered, like, what came first, lyrics or music?
No, I've never ever written a song with lyrics.
Okay.
I think it's a terrible way to write. I think you've got to do the music first.
And that lends to the, so that makes sense now, because with a song like that, it's got to be about something pretty fierce. So
yeah, I think that's where Sean was coming from, because it's crushing, isn't it? That riff. So
it is.
Got to have you can't sing, My Baby Loves Me.
Yeah, no, absolutely not on that one. So 2010, you write your autobiography, Am I Evil?
2009.
Was it 9 you started? Okay. And you only made 500 copies available.
That's right.
Boo. I didn't get one. What was the decision making in making it so exclusive?
500, because I thought 500 was enough. I paid for it myself. It was self-published, so I had to shell out the money for 500 copies.
And hardback too.
Hardback. And I thought, if I sell them all, great. It'll cover costs, I'll make some profit. If I don't sell them, then I'm going to be stuck in my garage for years. So I took that risk, and it took 2 years to sell all 500 copies. But, of course, people have been asking me sort of since if I've got any left, and I always have to say no, they've all gone. So I couldn't really justify making 1,000 copies, because I just thought, I'll never sell them. It's probably lack of confidence, and nobody advised me to do 1,000, because I asked people, family and friends, and I think most people thought 500 was a good number. Nobody said you should do 1,000, because I'll easily sell. Nobody said that. At one point I was going to do 400, and then I saw, with a bit of thought, I thought, perhaps we'll do 500 and take a risk, because of course it's all profit after about, I think I worked out 160 copies paid for itself. So everything after that would be profit. But I didn't have the nerve to do any more than 500.
So for those that don't have it, will there ever be a paperback? Will there ever be?
I'm thinking about it, yeah. Maybe to do a paperback.
Or another hardback would be cool.
A chapter that's happened since 2008.
Well, sure.
Some big stuff since.
Yeah, Sonosphere with Metallica.
Exactly. Some big things happened. First time in Canada, and these tours of America.
Yeah, you guys actually didn't really. Your first time making it out here was what, 2004?
What was that?
2004, was that the first time you guys did a proper tour of the States?
No, we've never. In 2002, we played the Metal Meltdown Festival in New Jersey.
Jersey, yeah.
And then we never really came back until 2011. That was our first tour. So it took forever to get over it and do it properly.
How's the crowd response been?
Great. Some places better than others, Some places have been, pretty full, and some places a bit quiet. So, it's just the way it is sometimes.
Sure.
And some places I think are probably better for the band. Certain territories seem to like Diamond Head better than others. It's just, we don't know. Sort of sometimes till you've actually been there.
Right.
We guess
testing the waters.
Yeah, that's right. Testing the water, stabbing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to thank you for having us out.
Okay.
It's an honor. It's
nice
a privilege.
To meet you. Yeah.
Where's the best place people can keep up to date with everything going on in the world of Diamond Head?
The website, www.diamond-head.net. That's the best place. And there's a Facebook, but it's all linked.
All the links are from there?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you again for having us out.
Problem,
Have a great show. And
thank you.
metal legend, Brian Tatler. Doesn't get much better than this. Thank you.